Hey y'all, it's Mother Luna coming at you with some mega energy. Now, I would like to talk to y'all about this progressive energy that's going forward and how you can utilize it for yourself. I also would like to just add my little personal tidbits like I usually do. Okay? One step that you can take for yourself is looking back over the last month and a half or so and seeing those little things that came up to your mind. It's like these are things that I am absolutely orchestrating like a symphony for and to myself. Now, if those things were things that made you feel uncomfortable, you have control over that too. hmm When I tell y'all I do my best to operate from a space of love, that is not an easy space to operate from. Not always, but it's the most powerful place I operate from. Let me explain to you. Let me explain you why that is significant. Okay, operating out of love for yourself. Okay, let's go to that place first before we spread that out from the center. You are the center of the universe. Every single one of you are the center of the universe. Every single one of you are your own little universe with everything else orbiting around you. Okay, and how that looks and how that is created and the things that are in it, you create, you orchestrate, you manifest. Your thoughts, your words, your actions contribute to that. Okay, now that is not to say that there are not other factors orbiting in. So imagine this like you would look out in space and you know there's shooting stars, there's asteroids, there's other planets, right? And sometimes when two planets come close to each other, we talked about that before, it's called a conjunction. It's when they're within 12 to 10 degrees of each other. That means they're close, right? This energy impacts that energy. And they either work well together and do some real nice things for one another and everything else that's affected by it, or they cause friction towards each other because they're close. Okay, this is the same idea of being clearly close to another human being, another circumstance, whether it be a job or a state or a city or whatever the case may be. Whatever the things are in your domain, in your little universe, you begin to, over time, start to understand the things that cause you friction and things that do not. Okay. Now, again, there are things that are outside of our control. Like if two planets are orbiting close to each other, yes, I'm using astrology for the metaphor, so we can use the above so as above so below reference here in that circumstance because it's still correct. Okay. And then suddenly, as you're conjuncting with another planet, an asteroid comes through and hits one of y'all. And then you didn't see where the asteroid came from, so you assume the other one did it. That kind of stuff happens all the time. Mm-hmm. Sure does. And then there's other circumstances that can cause even further friction. The best thing you can do for yourself is start to move and change your circumstances and yourself. First, change yourself, then your circumstances if you're empowered yourself to do so. Okay? And it's the same thing is true for the planets. They're constantly in motion. You are constantly in motion. You are constantly in a state of change. That is the only guarantee you have in life is change. Whatever circumstances you are in right now are guaranteed to change. No matter what you do, you can sit still and they still gonna change. They sure are. The day will become night and the night will become day over and over again. That still changes even nothing else happens. But other things will. Okay? Now, you being the center of your universe, if you decided to delve in and participate in things that you know have caused you harm, strife, contemplation about, just running away and not telling nobody. People have that more often nowadays than not. Yours truly gets that sometimes. I get the it sometimes. I call it hot feet. Anyway, if you re-engaged in those circumstances, what you've done at this particular juncture is decided that you want more of that in some way, shape, or form. You've decided that I want more of whatever the hell that was. I want more of it. You are controlling the master of the universe in that sense. Okay? This is the reason why I would say to you during Mercury retrogrades, sit still. Talk as little as you can. Do you know you can elevate your mind by being still and silent for a while? Like literally, if I'm not talking about parents, you gotta talk to your children. But I'm talking about somebody who doesn't have littles, who is not engaging in a job that requires you to constantly talk. You can sit still for a little while and not say a damn thing. Allow your mind to wander. Oh, I know that's scary for some people. Allowing your mind to wander. The things that'll help you progress are right there in your dome. Creating, whether you think about those things or not, they're still creating. Because it's called the subconscious for a reason. You can eliminate the subconscious altogether by allowing yourself to feel the things and think the things that you run away from, that nobody else knows about, and just sit in silence with it. Cry through it, get mad through it, get frustrated through it, all of that. That's part of shadow work, by the way. You just sitting with yourself, sitting with your thoughts and trying to figure them things out without anybody's assistance necessarily. Okay? Figure them out. Figure out everything for yourself. Even if you're just figuring out you have a feeling about something that you didn't realize you had a feeling about. And then take no action. See, that's a level of self control that you're training yourself to have. Because a lot of times during Mercury retrogrades, people feel the loneliness, they feel uh, nostalgia for things that they forget about all the trouble it was to get out of the circumstance and to get right back in it. All kinds of things. All these types of things come up during Mercury retrogrades. That is the time for you to do your best shadow work. And it's sometimes difficult to do that if you are doing too much, going out too much, laying around too much. And when I say laying around, I don't mean doing so by yourself. Okay? There's no judgment here. I'm Aquarius. I don't give a damn what y'all do with your private parts. As long as you ain't hurt nobody or forcing nobody. I don't care about that. What I care about is your continued health. Why do I care about that? Let's just take a little break and figure out why I care about that. Because no man stands alone, no man is an island. We made a song about it a long time ago, and I've been contemplating about it since I was a child. Miss Tilly taught me that song, and I'm like, for some reason, the strange child I was, I took that song, went home, and got philosophical and thought about it for hours and hours and hours and days and days and days. And then it helped me further. As I thought about it, I further figured out the connection between myself, my actions, my words, my intentions, even, and everybody else around me, as well as their effect on me. Okay? I know I was a strange child. I fully embrace it now. I was a beautiful child. Anyway, so if you understand yourself, you can understand your impact on yourself as well as the impact on everybody else in your universe. You being the universe and all. Okay? And you might think, well, that's only one universe. Who says? Every single thing that you have within you is mirrored in the universe, all the way down to your cells. So why can't you be your own little small universe within yourself? Everything in your body is moving and doing things that you ain't told it to do. It's just automatically doing it, and it's having an impact on other things. If you cut yourself right now, there are things in your body that will send cells that's meant to defeat, destroy germs and pathogens that may have come in when you scratched yourself. And there's also things separate from this that's coming to help you create what is called primary homeostasis. That means it's building a scab. Okay? And so those scab builders that help you regrow your skin, whether you have a scar or not, depends on how much collagen you have in that particular area that day. And if your vitamin levels are pretty good. All these things are going on within your device, your body, your mechanism, your machine. And you ain't tell it to do none of that stuff. You probably cut yourself on accident. I don't know nobody who just cooking or something like that just gonna cut themselves on purpose. unless they have some kind of other mental irritation or illness that's going on. I'm talking about this is an accident. And then your body goes to work and does that. It's like little people inside of you. Just go and do what they need to do to make everything function. Okay? Now, if you think about that too long, or if you take an acid trip or something like that, or mushrooms or something, and you think about that too long, you're going to realize some things and it might frighten you. So, take your time. Take your time, don't hurt yourself. Anyway, during Mercury retrograde, you can take the time to really develop your conscious and subconscious mind as one by sitting still. Why am I saying it's not that Mercury retrograde is over? Because every 3 months we have our Mercury retrograde, and we still have retrogrades going on. We have the Pluto retrograde, which is about death and rebirth. We got Uranus in retrograde, which is about the rebellious, free thinking, logical thinking aspect of the self. That's in retrograde. So there's going to be a tendency to want to rebel, but give yourself some caution so that you don't go too far and you still have some kind of safety net. See, that's the opposite of what Uranus really typically does when it's direct, the energy anyway. Okay? And typically just goes forward. It's like, you know what? YOLO. Yeet. That's Uranus energy. Okay? And so those are just examples. We've already talked about Saturn being in retrograde. We talked about Uranus being retrograde. We talked about Saturn being retrograde. Pluto's also in retrograde. Look at all these. We talked about it before. Go on here to look at those. Okay? So for my portion of this education is to help you see where you can aid and assist yourself moving forward. And start seeing yourself as bigger than you've imagined and more powerful than you imagine. When I say more powerful than you imagine, I'm not saying having power over others. That's not what this is about. Okay? You can have power over yourself and your circumstances. You sure can, in certain ways and levels. Okay? But this is not about being stronger, better, faster than someone else. Because in that situation, in that sense, if that is the goal, you will be disappointed. And why I say that? Again, being a strange child and everything gave me thought-provoking moments. I've come to understand some things. And one of those things I've come to understand is that the connection we have between ourselves and others is sound. That's the only other thing you can guarantee, that we're all connected. So the moment you start to build yourself just for the sole purpose of being better than someone else, you've diminished yourself. Because that is yourself. One day, I hope that we have at least a small majority of people who come to understand that, and maybe we can stop being so prickly towards one another. I'm not saying the world shouldn't still be interested in a little bit more shadow in it, but this is personal for me. Now, this is what I always gonna tell you when something's subjective. I believe there should be at least a little bit more light in the world than there is shadow. Not that the shadow is weak necessarily. Shadow can be weak when you're operating out of it solely because you're exhausted all the time. Having more light than shadow, we have a little bit more peace and serenity in the world than we have darkness and strife. I don't know nobody, even assholes, don't want to live in a world in which every single moment and second of their life is filled with some level of strife because the shadow has overtaken the light. I don't know anybody like that. Now, they might exist, everything exists, but I haven't met anybody that's just hell-bent on destruction and sadness and misery. I don't know nobody like that. Anyway, if you can collect the things, just particular Mercury retrograde, every Mercury retrograde sits in a constellation as we've talked about. But if you can collect that energy within yourself and say, okay, what facet of me? Next one coming up is Capricorn. You're going to be prepared for the test if you pay attention, young ones, older ones, in betweens. The next Mercury retrograde is going to be in the constellation of Capricorn. Now, what you get to do between now and then on your free time, whatever that means for you, is look up the traits of Capricorn. Also understanding what Mercury does, what it operates out of, and what it impacts. Also, you can give yourself a little treat and look at your birth chart, see where you have Capricorn energy strong. Now, I suggest you go to Afro Cafe or just astrology things, because I have to use several websites and mathematical tools for myself, because I don't have a powerful scope to look at the sky and measure all the degrees. I kind of wish I did, but in lieu of that, I go to the different astronomy websites, as well as the different websites that I find that are not just fluff. They actually have scientific merit to them, and I can fact check this over time with my own mathematics, things like this. But that's just for me. Y'all ain't got to go that deep. I don't recommend you doing it unless you got that kind of time. And we just learning here. We just going to keep it light, okay? But you can, however, if you haven't already, screenshotted your birth chart. Who ain't done that yet? Come on. Even if you like, we're not supposed to know the future. This is not about knowing the future. This is about knowing your present and being able to shape that and mold that in such a way that you can actually now truly order your steps, because you're prepared for what's coming. It's no different than if you have an exam coming up. You studying for the test, right? You don't know what's going to be on the test. You don't know what you're going to be hit with. You have no idea. You just know that it's math, for example. I know this is going to be a math exam, and it's going to have problems on it, but I don't know what the problems are unless you cheat. Okay? We're going to talk about cheating later in another video, because that's something I'm going to explain to you on a logical scale, why some of these things are not necessarily the best vibrations to operate out of. Anyway, sorry, my nose is starting to itch. Anyway, so you can prepare yourself, because you know, all right, Mercury coming again in 3 months. We got a little break now. Whew, right? We know it's coming in the constellation of Capricorn. What does Capricorn energy look like, feel like? What is that experience? And then you can further say, okay, so what does Mercury actually do, and what does it normally have the most energy in? Mercury is the ruler of Virgo. Okay, and even though I personally feel like it's exalted, it means it's elevated in some way in the constellation of Gemini. It is the ruler, the modern ruler of the constellation of Virgo. Okay, so Virgos and Capricorns, you're going to experience the most impact. And everyone else, the areas of your chart in which you have Virgo and Capricorn, those are the areas. And if this is for people who are in the Western Hemisphere, I forgot to tell y'all before, understand. Your area, your geographical location as it pertains to the position of the planets matter, because the constellations shift one backwards. And it's kind of like we are a little bit late, they're a little bit early. In the Eastern Hemisphere, the energy of the constellations are right now that Saturn is in this constellation of Capricorn. In the Western Hemisphere, the Saturn is in the constellation of Aquarius. So keep that in mind. So if anybody watching me from the Eastern Hemisphere, I need y'all to go, I'm in the Western Hemisphere, so I'm speaking directly to that. Doesn't mean that I am not aware that based on this hemisphere, we're in Saturn is doing Aquarius right now. In the Eastern Hemisphere, Saturn is doing Capricorn right now, although it's impacting both of those signs. Because energy, we're all connected. Energy connects itself. So whenever Saturn's sitting in a sign, just for future reference, whenever Saturn's sitting in a sign, yeah, you're gonna get more structured. You're gonna get more empowered. It's a do or die situation, especially after you're over a certain age. Okay. And this is not about Saturn returns, honey, because Saturn returns are a whole different animal. But always imagine that the Saturnian energy of structured discipline, rules, and all these things are going to be impacting both the sign it's in and the sign that's right before it. Every single time it shifts. And it'll shift again in March of next year. That's another thing to keep on your mind. But we're going to stay here with the Mercury retrograde so y'all can have future time. This is the only thing that you're going to go into the future to think about is that this test is going to come up whether I like it or not. It's not one you can avoid or skip out on. It's going to happen. Okay? Since you know that and you want to have the best outcome for yourself, you can sit and do nothing. That's also an option too. You don't have to know about none of this astrology stuff, none of this spiritual stuff, and just sit and do nothing. And you will change in some way. You will change something, but you won't change much. Now, this is about those who are looking for elevation, growth, positive change. And when I say positive change, I mean change that you actually want. Okay? Positive change can look different to you than it does to somebody else. Okay? If you want those things, give yourself the opportunity to study up now. What does it mean for me to be more structured? What does it mean for me to have more self-discipline? If I want to have this change in my life, what does that mean for me? And if you put in the work, what you're going to get is tested. The next Mercury retrograde in 3 months. You're going to test it to see if that's what you really want. The Southern enticing is going to come through and try to get you off your game to see if that's what you really want. If you don't do none of that work and you're still thinking about your thoughts create your reality no matter whether you acting on them or not, and you're like, I kind of do want that, but I don't know if I want to put any work in it. So I'm going to come through and do some other stuff and be like, well, here's the thing that you claimed you wanted. Now you're going to work real hard to have it, and it's going to entice you into getting started on that thing. And it's not going to work out necessarily like you think it's going to work out because you didn't take the time during planting season, which is typically most of the year. And then you want to harvest something, and you didn't put in that effort and work. That's not how the vibrations work. That's not how this game works. And yes, it's a big ass game if you don't know that. And so you have to put in some of the work in order to reap any of the benefits. Okay. And when I say work, it can just be work on self. If you want to be one of those people that are not quick to anger, then you're going to have to figure out how to not be quick to anger. And guess what Mercury did to me, y'all? There's no secret. I've told y'all that I've in the past, I've not been quick to anger, but when I have gotten angry, I have become completely out of pocket. I can laugh at it now because it's funny to me, but the results of that have not always been results I wanted. Like in the moment, it felt justified, and it still do to this day. But the after effect was like, damn, now I gotta do this, and this to make myself get back to center again. And that takes a lot of work. Do I want to keep doing all this work to get back to center? Or can I just avoid some of this? Now, let me figure out how I can avoid some of this. I got a handle on it, y'all. This is an example of this. I got a great handle on it. And guess what happened? A whole group of folk this Mercury retrograde decided, let me go ahead and test that theory. They didn't even know they were being directed by energy that I was creating. Like I said, y'all, your own little universes, and y'all come conjunct with other little planets that are people. And that's how that works. And when I tell you, it took a lot of understanding and work and deep breaths, meditation to keep me from drasking them sklows. You ever seen Key and Peele, the one and it was on an airplane, and it was like, we gonna get them Terrys. And it's like, we gonna dress them close. Honey, it was this close. I was like, Absolutely not. So instead, what I did was I cried because I felt bad that that was happening, but I also felt mad that I didn't do anything to them. And then I'm like, what's the results of doing something to them? Well, they will be dressed clowns. When I do something, I do it with the fullest, and I ain't never been unsuccessful with it. Just because you can't do something, don't mean you should do something. That's what my guys tend to tell me most of the time. Because you have shadowy guys, and your guys are like too. Because some of them will cheer you on right into your bullshit. I'm gonna be honest with you. Because everybody else talking about how the guy is always guiding you into the right path. They do. But you gotta remember, some of these are your ancestors, and they don't. And some of them don't suffer fools. I have some ancestors that wanted me to beat their ass yesterday. So like, y'all realize I have to live down here and deal with the consequences of that. It's like, yeah, that do be true. That do be facts. Want us to go? I'm like, nah, for right now, let's just sit tight. Whatever, whoever deserves what, gonna get what. Because that's another thing. Whatever you do to someone will eventually come back to you. Because we're all connected. It's like a boomerang effect. And we call it karma in a lot of ways. People call it karma without fully understanding the quantum physics of karma. It can be proven empirically based on our current science that karma is actually a thing that does occur. Now, how long it takes is not that part. The time frame in which it takes to come back to you sometimes is long, sometimes it's short. It depends on circumstances. But that's for another conversation. I hope I ain't getting too deep for y'all. Anyway, Mercury came and tested that theory to see if I had my anger under control, if I was going to dress them spots. And it's like, the truth is, I actually love them. I don't like them very much right now. I'm not going to pretend like I do. But I love them. Then if you love them, love is not about control. And for you to hurt someone is when you want to control them. You want to make them be more palatable for you. Have you learned that? And I have. I'm like, okay, I'm going to allow my feelings to be hurt and my ego to be wounded. And I'm just let it sit. That's some of the most powerful things you can do, kiddos. Now, some might say, well, that's a lack of self-love. That's their opinion, and they're entitled to it. I find that I become more empowered the more I reflect on things that is not the norm. I'm an Aquarius. I'm always remind you because I'm very powerful in that dynamic of mind when I think instead of react out of emotion. I allow my emotions to be more serene, even if it's just for myself. But anybody can do this. Anybody can do this. And I just told you how. Sometimes you gotta let some stuff slide. Oh, my nose. Sometimes you gotta let some stuff slide, even if you don't want to let it slide. Because when you're operating from a space of love, which is why it's so enticing and people do so much to have it, whether it's have people look at you with love, have love in your life, be idolized in some way. That's all some levels of love that people are seeking. Reason why it's so powerful is because there's an innate knowing that that is the most powerful thing we have energetically to harness. It changes our chemical structure in our DNA in our bodies, just like trauma does. But the difference between the two is obvious. One feels good and one does not. So I choose to operate out of love, even if it's just for myself. And you can do that too. Now, caveat before I wrap up this particular video. Operating out of love does not mean that you allow people to just physically harm you, emotionally and spiritually harm you. So what you do in that situation is you skedaddle, get out of there. Don't stay orbiting around other universes that don't mean you no good. Back away. It's not a point of weakness unless you care about what people who don't like you think. Now I know A lot of us do. We're born innately capable of doing that because of the interconnectedness between us all. We feel it, don't we? It's visceral. But as you become stronger of a planet, you can be Pluto or it can be Saturn. Talk about size and strength, of course. We can just be out here just being and having people tell us what we is and what we ain't, like they do for Pluto. Or you can decide you want to be who you and your mind have actualized long ago when you were a kid before people told you what you couldn't be and couldn't do. Even if it's just, I love myself so much, I think I am the most fantastic and amazing thing walking on planet Earth without having that be an affront to someone else. Because if I think that about me, that means I can think that about you. Connectedness. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you back away. Now, somebody follow you. Physically follow you, spiritually follow you, energetically follow you, and decide that they want to continuously harass you. Mm-hmm. That's what you get to do. Find a way to beat their ass and make it fun. That's what I do. Like, if I have chosen peace and I have chosen not to come into your orbit and I've chosen to back away and you've chosen violence and you've chosen to follow violence, we all have violence with it. It doesn't matter how gentle you are. Even a small little baby, before they even learn how to talk, know how to scratch a bite. We have that organically, innately within us, so we can protect ourselves. So, this is the point in which I kind of constantly tell you, I'm not all that altruistic. I'm logical. It makes logical sense to be kind to myself and kind to other people. And the feeling of love feels really good. That's the part of me that isn't logical. I used to didn't like that part of myself. I love it now. Having the vibration of love and holding the vibration of love is my best vibration to me. But it's also a vibration of love to give them what for. Because sometimes people need to understand consequences to their actions because they took your kindness for weakness. And that part, I ain't gonna lie to y'all. I laughed the whole time I'm doing it. Anyway, y'all have a good one. Y'all are loved. If you'd like to learn more about astrology, spirituality, whatever type that you are interested in, tarot, anything, master of all trades over here. See the description below. Until next time, y'all are loved.